Yes, folks, it's 2 p.m. Pacific time. It's Thursday. I'm Fred McMurray, which means this must be I'm Fred McMurray, and we're here today with my co-host Ray Pillar, Kristin Selmeczy, and our guest Jake Rankin. Ray, take it away.
Ways to support and show appreciation towards. I think that's a wonderful statement, and everyone should have that. Every franchisor should have that statement, or even a franchisee should have that statement towards the people, because our bread and butter are our employees. And
right.
In your case, your franchisors. So tell us a little bit more about Talem Home Care.
Okay. So we are a senior care franchise brand focusing on both non-medical and home care. So we're also a senior placement agency where, so if people can't stay home, we'll help people find the appropriate community to live in. So we're kind of like two franchises all rolled into one, if you will. And our overall mission, is really just that, trying to empower people to take control of their own life and lead them through whatever it is they're facing to accomplish their goals, whether it's our franchisees and their goal is business ownership and having freedom and flexibility, whether it's our caregivers and helping them climb that career ladder, or our clients, helping them stay safe and successful at home. We really try to work hard to make sure that we help all of the above in any way that we can.
Jake, the second part of what you said was about placement. So for somebody to use your service, do they need to be a senior then, or could they just be somebody who needs that extra care?
It's mostly for seniors. It's somebody who needs to move into like a nursing home or assisted living or memory care.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of options out there, and so you might need help narrowing down the options that best fits, your geographic needs, social needs, medical needs, financial needs, etc.
Financial needs is a huge one. We were not too long ago looking to bring my father-in-law here, and we looked at a place here in the immediate vicinity, and I was shocked. I mean,
was it
like
over $5,000 a month?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And the buy-in was like a mortgage payment. It was really crazy.
Okay. You were doing okay.
So it was kind of like a senior living, but you don't really need to have that care, but you could grow into more care. You know what I mean? Kind of like a transition area.
Common term is like they call it CCRC, continual care retirement community, where you'll buy condos or apartments or whatever, but then they also have assisted living at some point, and they can do nursing homes at some point, all in the same complex or campus.
Well, tell us a little bit about how, I read it, but obviously our listeners may not have any idea about this, but tell us how you came to get into this business, because it seems very personal to you.
Well, I've been in the industry for about 15 years, maybe 16 years. I started out I actually was in sales for a couple of years in college and doing things, but I wanted to find something that made a difference. And my uncle, who was an executive at a hospital, and mentioned getting into healthcare. So I took a job as a caregiver and started out as a caregiver and a staffing scheduling person while I was getting my bachelor's degree. And that kind of led me to starting my first office for them, and kind of boomed my career from there, as a regional sales manager and overseeing multiple offices. But I had some personal trauma in my life that kind of led us to starting Talem Home Care. It was just kind of frustrating. At that point in time, I think I'd been in the industry like 10 years, and I saw, I've been sitting at kitchen tables and hospital rooms with families and helping them guide through kind of what's next and what to think about and best questions to ask. But when it came my turn to deal with that with my own mother, there was a lot of challenges and difficulties. And I just remember thinking, wow, here I am, 10 years experience. I'm a certified senior advisor. Why does it have to be so hard? Why is the hospital fighting me? Why is the doctor fighting me? And I just remember thinking, I wonder what it would be like for people who didn't have my experience and how horrible that would be. And
Right.
so I just kind of saw that, there's really not a lot of advocates out there. There's a lot of people who specialize in their own little silo, their own little niche or area that they're in, but who's really going to advocate and help, people as they try to navigate that complicated healthcare system. And so kind of the core behind our business, no matter what, that free advocate, the application, the support, the care management that we provide, that's all free in what we do, whether somebody's a client of ours or not. We just want to be known as a place that people can turn to when they need help.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that was going to be my next question. I think there's a lot of confusion out there as to what's available, and then you do get sticker shock when you do begin to delve into it.
Yep.
And it's really hard to make your way through all of that without some sort of an advocate who's been in the industry and knows, no, you don't have to spend 10,000, you can spend 5,000 or whatever, and to have it free is fantastic.
Well, today, today too, think about how many people, particularly in my age group, right? We have 3 kids we're getting ready to put through college. Right. And I've got aging parents. One that's, my mother-in-law is 80 right now. And then, my dad is much younger. But I think a lot of people find themselves in that struggle of how do we manage college and elder care? And, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm still working and trying to make ends meet on a regular basis at home. Are you seeing a lot of that? I mean, it seems to me you would run into a lot of that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're living longer right now and we're staying alive. So you're probably dealing with your mom, you're probably dealing with your grandmother, and you're also dealing with, your kids all at the same time going to college. And how do you take the time to dive into that? And when something happens and everything kind of puts life on hold on a dime, what you should be focusing on is helping your loved one recover or helping your loved one, in other ways. You don't need the added stress of researching and trying to decide, is what the hospital telling me is true, or, what all options do I have? How do I figure that piece out? And so, yeah, we're definitely seeing that. And that's why, our industry is at the beginning of a massive boom. They say every industry has a bubble, right? That perfect time to be in it. And right now, I think, is our industry, and that bubble is going to last for about 19 years.
Well, it kind of takes you through the whole baby boomer thing, right? I mean, I know when I opened my business, that was one of the considerations I had, is that, who is going to be your target?
Yeah, well.
Try it again, Kristin.
Yeah, I like the pose,
Yeah.
She's like, it's like a statue of Kristin there.
Yeah.
Looking off into the future. I like that. We'll get her back. Go ahead, Ray. You better jump in here.
I'm going to jump in here. So I want to talk a little bit more about the franchise itself. Let's start with what is your typical buyer into your franchise? What does he look like? What does she look like?
We like people who are very coachable, people who like to follow systems, take advice. We found that former military veterans seem to do fairly well. Those who are very organized seem to do very well. Having a sales background also can be very helpful because there's a lot of sales in what we do. And you don't necessarily have to be an expert or have any knowledge at all about healthcare to be successful. I think our best franchisee right now, he's former military, retired Air Force colonel, and zero healthcare experience whatsoever, but he's doing really good. The biggest thing is he communicates well. His passion is there. You really have to have a passion for this industry if you're going to do well.
Yes, that helps.
And I think that's what people see. They see his passion, his follow through, his dedication. That's the biggest key to his success, I think.
Yep. So, what does it take to get involved in your franchise? What are your requirements? What's the most franchises say, well, you can have a net worth of or liquid funds of, and what is the franchise fee?
Yeah, we do have those, liquid assets and net worth things that we take a look at. But the biggest thing is really having that passion. One of the problems I've seen in our industry is too many brands have sold franchises to people who have money, and they just look at it as, oh, I can make a ton of money in this industry. I'm going to buy a franchise. And then they find out that, well, wow, yes, you can definitely do that. You really need to have that passion behind it. And so that's one of the biggest things that we look for is, we want you to have the money, but we really want you to have that passion.
Of course, having the money is it's one of the pillars is you want to make sure you have enough money to get through the tough times.
Absolutely.
Because both Kristin and I have been through that downturn in 2000, and now the Corona thing. So you've got to have the funds available in the background to fill in to save your business. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Well, why do I need so much money? Why do I have to have so much liquid in funds? Is because sometimes it's only going to take $1 to save your entire savings.
Right. Right.
So, Kristin, are you back with us? You're muted.
No, she's not.
No?
She's just having for once, it's not me.
Can't hear you.
She's got a new hat on or new background, so it's actually good. So, all right. So while she's working on that, so I'm going to ask my famous franchise disclosure document. You obviously have an FDD.
Yes.
So you also know that it's the greatest cure known to mankind for insomnia.
It's a great tool to help you sleep.
It is. God, some of them that I've been through have been really put me to sleep. So my question to you is when, not necessarily about your FDD, but when you're talking to somebody about the FDD, which I know comes up often in conversation, what sections of the FDD do you recommend people read first to see if a franchise is correct for them? I know the answer is you got to read all of it, but my belief is that there's 2-3 sections you can read first to see if it matches what you want to weed them out. So what are the 2 or 3 sections you'd recommend?
When I look at an FDD, the first section I go to, I think is the item 2, where it talks about the business experience of all the owners and the key players within there. If I'm buying a franchise, I want to know what is their history and what their background. In our industry, I've seen a lot of people, there's a lot of private equity firms and a lot of people who are in position to make decisions that have never worked in healthcare and never worked in senior care. And if I was, I was buying a franchise, I'd want to learn from people who have actually done the work.
I think that's a really good point.
She's back, folks.
Well, and you know,
Perfect
it's
timing to
funny.
be back.
I know. I'm so sorry. We've gone through different headsets and different backgrounds, different computers. This is crazy. We were fine earlier today, but
Yeah.
the one thing that you said that really interests me is in that particular section, we often talk about making sure that you have the financing and all that kind of stuff and more of the hard stuff. But I think in a field like you're in with senior care, it is important to have somebody who understands. You have to have a passion. Like senior care to me is not a field you get into if you're just looking to make money,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Because, well, the money may follow.
Yes.
You really have to have a love for people and understanding. You know, I'm sorry that you had to go through that with your mom. I just recently went through it with my mom, and I think that that gives you a greater appreciation even for the people who work in that field and the things they must go through every day as
Right.
caregivers. So
Yeah, you absolutely have to. And I just feel like I said, there's a lot of private equity firms buying up franchisors in our space. And I mean, what's the main goal of a private equity firm? They buy, try to fix it so they can sell it in 5 to 7 years down the road. And I have lots of friends in those systems, and they just keep telling me that they're cutting costs and they're doing things because they're trying to maximize profits. And that's the point I was making about my mom. It ends up being more of a numbers game to these large corporations and not about the care. And
yeah, I think Ray and I are experiencing a little bit of that here and there too. And you know, it's really a balance. And I will tell you that I think that's the great thing about owning your own business. If you can be kind of the shield between the private equity groups that want to make money and your customers or your clients, right? You're the shield. So while your franchisor may have different underlying plans, your success is really in how you filter that message and keep the kind, caring.
Right.
Yeah.
But you need to make sure you're both are moving the same direction. You know, if they're trying to cut costs, they may not be adding new programs. They may not be trying very hard to make things more competitive. And so if you were going to go, you know, push that boulder downhill instead of uphill, you want to make sure you're on the same page with your franchisor.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I was thinking of a word that you could use, and I think a franchise owner is sort of like a shock absorber, which is you know, so we're the shock absorber between corporate and employees, our employees, you know, so they don't really see everything that's going on, you know, in the corporate world, and we absorb that shock. You know, I'll withdraw money from my savings and put it into the business, and then sometimes it goes the other way. And you know, I used to feel guilty about drawing money from the business, but now I don't anymore because I'm, you know, putting money into the business. So
that's what you did it for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We view our franchise partners as true partners. We're trying to get away. You know, most franchise systems, they want to keep you at arm's length because that's, you know, I had a professor at Georgetown say, you know, the definition of franchising is to reduce monitoring costs, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can reduce the amount of time you're monitoring your people, that's the true definition of franchising. And I see his point behind that, but I view franchising as a partnership. We want to work hand in hand and roll up our sleeves and be a true partner to our franchisees and not keep them at arm's length.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
And unfortunately, a lot of franchisors don't realize that. They don't realize how their bread is buttered. You know,
right.
You know, and if they just work harder to making the franchise owner more successful, it automatically elevates them. You know,
well, it's symbiotic. The more successful they are, the more successful we are.
Yeah.
You know? And it takes a team effort.
It does. It does. I just want to circle back a little bit, unless Fred wants to go to it.
I know Fred looks like he has something. He didn't like my definition, I think.
Well, no, I'm trying to figure. I don't have a problem with the definition. Your definition. I just thought we were talking home health care, not automotive franchising. Never mind. So we will take a commercial break, as is our want. Ray, we want to actually give a shout out to FeedSpot for listing us as one of the top 20 franchise podcasts you should listen to in 2020. And Ray,
Congrats.
as we go to the break, yeah, that's it. Number one, my friend, number one.
Yep, number one. Thanks, FeedSpot, for listing us. We hope to make it in 2021. And now, a word from a sponsor.
Hey, franchise owners. How's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvyne, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvyne.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvyne with a y.com.
Thanks, Michelle.
The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Women will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Woman. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Looking forward to seeing you back on the show.
Back. And we're back. Thanks, Michelle. So, Ray, you had a question? Go ahead. I already made my automotive comment.
Back, Jake, a little bit because we kind of glossed over the numbers about net worth and how much money and what is the franchise fee and all that. We do have our audience is interested, and we have a lot of people who are either thinking about buying a franchise or they're already involved in another one and they're thinking about adding to it. So give us a little information about your franchise.
Right, so our franchise fee starts at $39,500, which is extremely competitive in our market, in our industry. And our territories are 2 to 3 times larger than we have the largest that I know of in the industry. So we start at 400,000 people in population. We can go as high as 625,000 people for one single unit. When we take a look at our candidates, we want to have some liquidity there that we look for, so they can either give themselves an SBA loan or have enough money to ensure success. Like you said, you want to make sure you have enough for emergencies also. We take a look at their debt to income or debt to net worth ratio, because we want to know if they're putting every penny they own into this or how that affects or not, because that might affect their mentality at some point. But we want to be open and flexible. Sometimes we just go with our feel. Do we feel like they're going to be a good franchise owner? And if they're going to, we're going to try to find ways to make it work. We try to pride ourselves at being outside the box thinkers. And we're doing that right now. We have a candidate that is closing in 2 weeks for us. That they're going to make they're going to make their franchise fee in 2 payments. Just because of certain circumstances, and we're okay with that. We want to be flexible.
Have you ever had, obviously without names and things that would give the person away, have you ever had an absolute train wreck?
Yep.
Yeah. And what do you attribute that to? What do you think that where do you think you went wrong, or they went wrong in the process?
I think where we went wrong in the process is we ignored some red flags. Being a smaller brand, while our philosophy has always been let's hire quality and not quantity. It's really hard when the time comes to say no at sometimes. And so there was a lot of red flags to show us that they weren't necessarily teachable. They weren't willing to follow the formula, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, Ray and I were just talking about, remember, this one and that one, and they already knew everything, and they hadn't even got their foot in the door.
Yeah.
So, how many franchises do you have right now?
We have 6 franchisees with a total of 11 territories, and we have 2 corporate-owned locations currently, but we have a good handful coming in the next 90 days.
What are some of the target areas? So for people who are out there listening, if they happen to be in those upcoming markets that you'd like to break into, can you talk a little bit about that?
I think some of the hottest markets right now for us, because taking a step back, our model is both private pay and we work with Medicaid, where most brands work with private pay. And so under the Medicaid model, we really want to focus, the best markets are those with high Medicaid reimbursement levels. And that's places like Arizona, Pennsylvania, Nebraska, and then Wisconsin is a really a good market for us as well. Considering I live in Wisconsin, it's really easy for us. The only state we're pretty much sold out of is Colorado, which the Grand Junction area, the western slope, we can take care of. But outside of that, we're sold out.
Okay, I have a crazy question. This whole Medicaid situation that you're talking about, what and or why are some markets better than others? I thought that was a federal program. I'm totally confused.
It is a federal program, but it is state ran. So the funding comes from the federal government, but each state just decides how they choose to use that money for what programs within their Medicaid system. And so some states will have a reimbursement level of, say, $14 an hour, like Texas. I think it's 14 and change, and you have to pay your caregivers 10. It doesn't make sense. Some states, like Colorado, for example, they're over 19 or 1850 right now. And they're going to be over 19. This Connecticut has really good Medicaid rates. And that's kind of what we look at is the Medicaid rates and the regulations. How hard is it to get a license there and manage the license?
Well, I had no idea there was such a discrepancy in the states and how they pay. Very interesting.
Right. Yeah. That's what makes it, they're all not the greatest payer source. I mean, you're talking, $16 to $20 an hour for Medicaid, where private pay, you can probably get, $24 to $32 an hour, depending on the market. And so a lot of brands don't see the value in taking that lower margin patients. And we do see the margin. And that comes back to a comment Ray made earlier, you have to be able to learn to operate under thin margins because those who start under extreme economic circumstances, those businesses that start during them are the ones that last forever. Because if you start a business and margins are really good and business is fat, you might have a harder time dealing with the lean times.
Yeah.
Because you're not used to it.
Right.
Speaking of lean times, how
like now.
Yeah.
Right, again. Yeah. So how has COVID affected business for you guys? Obviously, you have to operate a little bit differently.
Yeah. Our business model has changed quite a bit, I think, with everything from recruiting strategies and how to recruit and retain employees to our lead generation and how do we find our clients. We've had a little bit of a roller coaster with COVID. At first, everybody just went on shutdown, and we had a bunch of clients, pause services because they were afraid, rightfully so. I probably would be too, at first. And then over time, they slowly came back, and now people are realizing, oh wow, we really need your help And so now our hours have gone back up, but we've had to be creative in finding less traditional revenue sources, trying to do things like staffing and
Sure.
putting caregivers, a lot of people are taking temperatures when they go into businesses, trying to help staff that.
Mm-hmm.
So we overall, as a group, we have seen our hours are a lot higher now than they were prior to COVID.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. Not everybody has seen that rebound, a complete rebound.
Right. Our biggest challenge actually is the caregiver side of things.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. The unemployment, what was it, $600 a week, I think it was.
The kicker.
Yeah. On top of normal unemployment, that made it really hard. We had caregivers asking us to fire them, and it was, that had some challenges.
I had that happen too. And I'm like, in my right mind, I cannot do that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
They
Fire
made more
you
money
at home. I can't do it.
Yeah. And then same with minimum wage. That's another kind of threat to us, which we're fine. We'll deal with it. But every time minimum wage gets raised, we have caregivers that come back and says, I need to work less hours because I need my WIC program, or I need my Medicaid, or I need because I'm on a low income program. Raising minimum wage really doesn't solve the issue. I've been on calls with people and they keep saying we need to raise the minimum wage or the ability for these caregivers to earn more. But the problem is the more things you do and the more money you give them, the less they're going to work, and then you're going to have less people to help support the seniors, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's hard to explain to some people that the minimum wage is not all that it seems. That means that in Illinois we're going to have that, and guess what? Prices are going to go up, and that means everybody's going to pay for that person making minimum wage.
It's called wage push inflation.
Yeah. And people don't like it, but yet, we vote to do it. And then when it actually happens, we're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to have to pay more. Well, you wanted to raise minimum wage, and that affects everything from the person who handles the boxes that your products go into, right? Like everything is touched.
Right.
So it's interesting, but I think that it's important. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, with these minimum wage people, it doesn't save these low-income programs anything by putting them more money into these workers are going to find ways to reduce their hours or to reduce their income, so they do still qualify for those programs.
I think as we talk about this, the one thing that really kind of jumps out at me is, and it's certainly not to scare people away from buying a franchise, but I think that if folks out there are thinking about it and you have HR experience or you have hiring experience, you're a great candidate for a small business like this, because a lot of people who go into these things, now I've had some HR experience, but I'm not an HR professional. And a lot of what you're dealing with in small business, even in franchises, is really the people issue. The things that we just talked about are things that most people working in corporate America, they don't think about, because unless they're in HR, they don't deal with that part.
Right.
And so I think it's actually as much of a headache as it can be. I find it to be quite enjoyable, and just sitting back and watching human behavior in a situation like this, just like you said, I get more money, well, then I want to work less. And I'm like, what? Oh, I get it, because these programs tell you if you make too much, you no longer qualify. And so I think small businesses really bring out so many different aspects of an owner's personality, their skill sets. I mean, it really makes you rise to the occasion and make sure that even if you're not an expert in one thing, you become knowledgeable in all things, right? That jack of all trades, master of none.
That's been part of our model. Part of my career, I was a consultant, an intern for the SBA, consulting small businesses when I was in college. And one of the things I learned was exactly what you're saying. Is small business owners have to be the master of everything: HR, accounting, recruiting, benefits, tax planning, digital marketing. But the reality is they're not the experts in everything. And so one of the biggest differentiators we have is the fact that we have built a system that has built in those experts for them. So we have a recruiting department that helps all of our franchisees with recruiting.
Wow.
That's basically included. So they actually pay for a lot of recruiting costs too. And then they have an HR manager that teaches them how to do HR, and basically is your HR department. They'll give you all your forms. They'll help you fire people. They'll help you hire people.
Wow.
They keep
So
you
anybody
compliant.
out there looking for a franchise, I've never heard of having that kind of support before. Fred and I talked about a year ago about putting together some kind of, the big miss in so many franchises is the HR part. And that's what you as a franchisor is offering. That's almost in some cases invaluable. That's amazing.
It's very important.
Same with benefits. Our franchisees, we get access to Fortune 500 benefits for their employees, for themselves, day one. But again, who takes the time to manage those benefits? That's a whole nother department. And so we've got people, digital marketing, and how do you do your online social media, pay-per-click, I'm the CEO of a company and it's still confusing for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Kristin and I are
Fred's on mute, I
part
think.
of a co-op regarding that digital marketing. So we I still
Fred's like, what about Westvyne? What about Westvyne? Fred's dying over here. Westvyne, hello, I help you both. Is somebody going to drop my name? If you're watching the podcast, you'll see Fred flailing like he's drowning.
Wow.
Well, we'll have to have a talk offline about what you do then and add you to our vendor list.
Yeah, you should. That's exactly, he does a lot of that. And I will say the great thing about Westvyne is they can tailor it to each location, customize. I call them caricatures with their little cartoon things. And
she's my favorite now.
Oh, as long as I win the hat contest, that's all I care about.
Well, I want to get back a little bit to the nuts and bolts of the franchise, and what type. We just touched the fact that licenses are required. So,
in some states,
what type of license does the franchise require, and what type of license do the employees of the franchise require?
So it's all state specific. Some states require you to have a license, others don't. Like Arizona, for example, you can literally start business tomorrow if you wanted to.
Wow.
And so we'll help, the complicated part of that as well is figuring out which states have what rules and regulations and how do you apply for that license. And that's where we come into play.
Okay.
So we'll help guide people through that. When it comes to the employees themselves, there is no licensure required really in any state. These caregivers can be, could be you, could be me, could be anybody who has a heart and wants to get into this industry. Good franchise systems will have great training programs for their caregivers to help them learn how to be better caregivers.
And
Which
training,
I assume you have.
is part of the what you get in your training and
right.
Is there training for the franchise employees as well that you offer or not?
Well, you have to be careful with that with some joint employment regulations. So it's more of a train the trainer. We train the franchisor how to do it. We do require every franchisee though to become a certified senior advisor.
Okay.
That's a third party person that does that training, that does that certification. And then they also become a certified dementia trainer also in dementia care and compassion touch. Yeah. So they become, and it's part of their sales and marketing they can also use too. So it's kind of twofold. They can train their caregivers and also train hospitals and policemen and fire people and anybody who wants to be trained on dementia care.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
It's very important. There's so much of that happening now. So,
as we talk about dementia, look at Fred sitting there with his rabbit hole background.
Yeah. So is it time, Fred? All right, go down the rabbit hole.
Time for us to go down. So this week we're going to do one of my favorites, which is alien invasion.
Uh-oh.
So the down the rabbit hole question is, how will Talem Home Care determine how to care for various alien races that invade Earth?
We teach them the human spirit.
Oh,
We absolutely teach them the human spirit and how to care.
Yeah. Yeah.
How to take that personalized approach and how to make every person that you touch feel like they're important. Because isn't that the definition of humanity, right? Or the best quality of humanity is our heart.
absolutely.
Hopefully they don't want to eat it. Ray,
Right?
On that
your
note,
All right.
your famous last question, Ray.
We're ready for the last question. So, first of all, I'm going to say I love your logo. I can see it in the background.
Thank you.
I think it epitomizes
Hands are on.
what we're talking about, caring and heart and home. And the last question is, so if somebody is listening to the show is say, hey, this is something I really want to get into, how is the best way to get a hold of you?
Call us directly. Go onto our website or, and look us up, www.talemfranchising.com or talemhomecare.com, either way. But you can pick up the phone and call me anytime. It's 833-TALEM-HC is our phone number. And that rings directly to me.
Okay. Well, give us the numbers on that because not everybody can translate
Sure.
that.
Geez,
spell.
yeah, I can't even translate that. Yeah, it's
you have to look at the phone.
I do. 833-TALEM-HC. So it's 825-3642.
There you go. All right. And of course, when the show airs, everything will be on our webpage. So anybody who's listening can say, I didn't get that. I was driving or whatever. It'll be
Right.
on our webpage after the show airs.
Correct,
Thank
it
you
will, Ray.
so much, Jake. You're a fantastic guest. We really appreciate it.
What
Well,
a
thank
great
you for having me today.
What a great heartfelt franchisor you seem to be. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, I appreciate that, and I just encourage you guys to come experience it. So.
Awesome.
Pillars of franchising. Pillars of franchising.